Anybody can introduce Darwin? Who was Darwin? I did tell you interesting stories about him. Okay, what is evolution? The printed note starts with that only.
Change in gene frequencies.
Change in progressive direction.
That will be genetically, but firstly you have to tell in general. Change with modification or change in the progressive direction. Genetically, when we say, then it is change in gene frequencies. What are gene frequencies?
Sir, any gene occurring multiple times or it's dominant.
I have explained in the video I had about that.
Yes, sir.
देख लो एक बार फिर से सब लोग. I will discuss more when the turn comes. But presently, you just remember change in gene frequency. I told you there is nothing called as gene frequencies, only allele frequencies are there. But still, we continue with the term. So, we'll be starting with the theories. Firstly, Lamarck. Full name? मैंने बताया था कोई जरूरत नहीं है याद रखने की. But this book, the classic one, the only book till the end of 19th century that was completely sold. The first edition of 1200 copies was sold out on the day of publication. जिस दिन किताब छपी उसी दिन पूरी की पूरी बिक गई. But it doesn't mean that people agreed to what Darwin said. Like if I tell you about the forward, the starting, it says descending from apes. क्या हम एप से डिसेंड हुए? एक्सक्लेमेशन है. My dear, let us hope that is not true. But if it is, let us pray that it will not become generally known. पहले तो ये सच नहीं होगा, और अगर सच है तो ये ज्यादा लोगों को पता नहीं लगना चाहिए. ये कमेंट था एक बिशप की मिसेस का. Actually, it has been a rule in the West. They never invited research. गैलीलियो पता है आपको? एक बात कही फिनिश. हमारे यहाँ ऋषि मुनि हफ्तों नहीं, महीनों नहीं, सालों साल, they would watch the movement of stars and everything. They would conduct experiments again and again and again. कल ही मैं वो वारामेर की वीडियो देख रहा था. आर्यभट्ट तो सबको पता है. And he didn't invent zero. It was invented much earlier. और हमारे यहाँ इन्वेंटर जो हैं उनको कोई जरूरत ही नहीं होती थी अपना नाम लिखने की भी. Like the most scientific book written at that time, it is Surya Siddhant. Writer has not given his name in that book. If you are doing anything for humanity, who discovered that polio injection? Invented कहोगे, discovered कहोगे, जो भी कहोगे.
Salk and Sabin, sir.
भाई साहब पेंसिलिन की बात नहीं कर रहा मैं.
Sir, Salk and Sabin.
Salk.
Well, so a reporter asked him, when are you going to patent? पता है क्या कहा उसने? Can you patent sun? So great people, ये नहीं कि इंडिया में ही होते हैं, बाहर भी होते हैं. But our dharma that is there, सर्वे सुखिना संतु, सर्वे संतु निरामया, सबकी बात करते हैं हम लोग. Before that, when Lamarck gave his theory, not much people knew about, but still people did. And the way he faced the church with blasphemy and all those things, इतना टॉर्चर हुआ था कि बिफोर हिज डेथ ही एडमिटेड दैट आई वाज ए फूल। है, वो शैतान मेरे दिमाग पे आके वो लिख रहा था, मैंने तो कुछ नहीं किया। बट बाय दैट टाइम द मैसेज हैड स्प्रेड सो मच इट कुड नॉट बी विथड्रॉन। बट whenever something new comes, there are always three types of responses. Firstly, blind supporters. Students of science, blind supporters of Lamarck. You study in history, no changes and pro changes. Pro changes. Church was opposing. Science develops because of the third kind of version. That something new has come, let us test, let's evaluate. If it is worth, we'll keep it, otherwise we'll reject. So thereafter, people started gathering evidences. No, for Darwin, this became very handy. And Darwin, as such, he never gave credit to Lamarck for his research. But he did appreciate in the book. He writes, Lamarck was the first man whose conclusions on the subject excited much attention. The justly celebrated naturalist first published his views in 1801. He much enlarged them in 1809 in his philosophic zoology. And again, he wrote in 1815, not all those things. But in general, in public life, Darwin never recognized. You know, there are three kinds of greats. Some are born great, some become great through their acts, and on some, greatness is thrust upon. Most of the people are third kind. Like our leaders of freedom struggle, you know about. Darwin, I would like to put in the same category. The reason I told you about Wallace. Wallace was a botanist working in the jungles of Indonesia. In 1858, he sent his research paper and a letter to Darwin to seek his opinion. Darwin was thinking about that, but his friends, they prompted him कि भैया जल्दी से करो, किताब पब्लिश करो, नहीं तो सारे नंबर ले जाएगा. तो डार्विन ने फटाफट किताब लिख मारी और छपवा दी. That is one thing. But Darwin took several months to respond to Wallace. And he responded that I've been doing research on the same lines for the last 20 years. So let's publish a joint paper. अब वैलिस को पता था कि डार्विन बिलोंग्स टू द एलीट ऑफ लंदन. मैंने मना कर दिया यार, उसने अपने नाम से छपवा दिया तो मैं क्या कर लूंगा. और मैं हाँ करूंगा तो चलो सेकंड नंबर रहेगा, मेरा नाम रहेगा तो सही, और डार्विन के साथ जुड़ जाएगा. Till date, we can debate who is the original researcher, whether Wallace or even the table which we talk about Darwin's research that is given on your page 2. That is originally given by Wallace. What is that? That is observation and inference. First observation is Malthusian principle. You know, population increases in the geometric progression because of enormous fertility, but food supply increases only in the arithmetic progression. Malthus wrote this essay on population in 1798, but Darwin read it in 1834, and that was enough to revolutionize his mind. So that is the first observation. Then first inference is struggle for existence. Second observation is variations, and second inference is natural selection. यही से होता है ना. Then third is transfer of variations over generations. In summary, this is the table: variations over generations, and third inference is origin of species. So this table, at the bottom you can write schematic presentation of the evolutionary concept of Darwin as given by Wallace, modified. Evolutionary scheme of Darwin as given by Wallace, modified. The way he explains there is enormous fertility, so population increases very fast in numbers. In the next generation that creates, there are variations that appear. Means members of a generation, they differ from each other and also from the previous generations, which Darwin called variations. Members of a generation differ from each other and also from the previous generation very minutely. So this small, fluctuating, spontaneous variations he called differences, he called variations. Variations can be advantageous, variations can be disadvantageous, he said. So those who have larger number of advantageous variations, they have greater chance of survival. When population increases, there will be struggle for resources. Because he said, Malthus, population increases very fast, but resources increase very gradually. Population increases from 10,000 to 1 lakh, resources will increase from 10,000 to 20,000. So it is 80,000 will have to perish. So those who have larger number of advantageous variations, they have better chances of survival in struggle. Variations appear, then struggle is there. Struggle, natural selection will decide who has to survive. Those who have larger number of advantageous variations have better chances of survival. So this will result in survival of a small group. Again, go back to the first observation. Again, this small population will give rise to a large population. Again, members of a generation from each other differ from each other and also from the previous generation. Again, there will be struggle for existence. Again, there will be natural selection. And those who survive, their variations will be transferred to the next generation. And after the transfer, again, same process starts. And finally, we will have arrival of new species. After variations are added, after n number of generations, scientifically we never name it. We say n number of generations. Certain individuals that we will see, they will be visibly different, morphologically different from the first parental generation. That means a new species has already come. So this is a summary of the contribution of Darwin that we will talk in detail, but presently remember this much, enough to begin with. So you can say in a way Darwin was lucky or Darwin was crooked, because the credit that would have gone to Wallace, वो तो Darwin ले गया. Even in the experiments also, He was hardly about 25, 23 and a half, I think, 22, 23, when he went on the journey. नाम क्या था शिप का? Beagle. SMS Beagle. Actually, he was not included there. Very senior scientists were to go. The naturalists who had to go. Just 15 days before, he wrote to the organizers that I'm busy with my research. So he named his brother-in-law. And just 3 days before, that brother-in-law falls sick. So he recommended Darwin. Darwin had to become famous, that's why. So, what you learn from this story of Darwin? One thing is consistency. The way he worked in whole of this book, he has not given any theory. He has talked about variation, selection. And there is a chapter on the problems involved in theorizing. But he was a very good artist. Look at the diagrams he has given. And there were diagrams from other sources also, but he was a good painter. Second thing is, you got to be in the right company. That's why I always advise you to have some small group. This small group, even if they do not work as hard as you do, but you will have your well-wishers at least in the group. And third thing, obviously, the writing skills which Darwin had. I always emphasize on good writing. One thing that you cannot have on your own is good luck. That is a chance matter. One thing you cannot have, elite descent. He belonged to the elite of the London. That you cannot on your own. But those 3 points you can remember.